Hey, I'm Benjamin Schultz, Construction Engineering and Management class of 2026 here at Purdue University, and I'll be talking about the internship experience that I just completed over the summer of 2023 with Mortenson Construction. So Mortenson is a Midwestern-based but national firm that does construction in all sorts of different sectors all over the country, often in a turnkey role as they were on this project. So we did the project as design build, and we subcontracted the design out to an engineering consulting firm. And in this particular case, although Mortenson is involved in a ton of different sectors, this project was with their energy storage and solutions group, which does a lot of energy infrastructure, particularly centered around renewables, electric vehicle infrastructure, microgrids. In this case, I was doing battery storage. So BESS, battery energy storage systems, was what this particular project was. Now, a quick disclaimer before I go on. The photos that are used in this presentation pertaining to Mortenson have been approved by Mortenson, but this presentation has not been reviewed, so this by them in particular. So anything that I say here should not be construed as being a particular statement on behalf of or the opinion of Mortenson. These are my own personal views, many of them positive, so don't worry too much. But this is my own personal presentation and should not be taken as their public statement or anything like that. Now, this particular project that I was on was the Edwards and Sanborn Solar and Storage Project out in the Mojave Desert in California. Now, the solar aspect of it had been completed before I got there, almost 2 million solar panels, but I was involved with the construction of the BESS system, so the battery storage, which you can see on the bottom there. Those are the BYD energy storage units, battery enclosures that contain lithium-ion batteries. This project was being developed in a public-private partnership between large renewables developer and the U.S. Air Force, actually. That's where the Edwards part of it comes from, Edwards Air Force Base, if you're familiar. And it is an absolutely enormous project. A 10-figure contract, I believe, with over almost 2 million solar panels placed, as I said, and by the completion of construction will be 3.2 gigawatts with a G, 3.2 gigawatt hours of energy storage. So an absolutely enormous project in the current phases, projected to continue on to the future if possible, just tons and tons of development going on out there. So this is me showing up for my second week of work, dorky little intern, as you can see. I'll just get into some of my general responsibilities because, we all do the intern stuff. I'll get into my more detailed assignments later, but everybody does the intern thing. You're printing papers, you're doing paperwork, you're delivering things between different parts of the office, between different trailers. You're just serving as an extra pair of eyes and hands so that the higher salaried engineers maybe aren't wasting all their man hours on slightly less technical stuff. You're not certified on anything, but you are vetted, so they know that you have some technical capability, that you have an eye for some of the things, but you're not doing anything that would actually require an engineer. Everybody does the internship stuff. Just clear that up before I got there. Being my dorky little intern self. I did a lot of IT stuff for a lot of people. Some of my more specific responsibilities included subcontractor supervision. So this again ties into being an extra pair of eyes and ears and hands that isn't maybe being paid an engineer's salary, so it's a little bit more efficient project-wise for me to be doing this stuff. So this wasn't quite babysitting, it was a little bit more involved, and this was my very first exposure to project management stuff. So in this particular case, this is a subcontractor that we brought out to construct these water tanks. So when you've got tons and tons and tons of energy infrastructure sitting out in the desert, you want to make sure that your fire suppression systems are going to be shipshape. So we had these massive tanks scattered across the site, contracted out, and at one point one of them burst a leak. So we brought out the contractor to do some warranty support on that, replace the interior liner, figure out what the problem was. And one of my first assignments involving actual project management work was just making sure the paperwork was in order for these guys, all the safety was in order, watching the weather, keeping an eye on them, making sure if they needed anything that they were getting it, coordinating some of the work, turning on and off the the water pumps, making sure that that boom lift that we supplied to them was in order and that it got to them on time before they needed to get their work done, stuff like that, taking pictures of the leak sites after they were repaired so that we could make sure that all of the warranty work had been completed. Again, stuff that, isn't quite babysitting, it's just stuff that needs to get done, and that was a great intro for me because I immediately professed an interest in project management stuff. More specifically, and this was what dominated the vast majority of my summer and somewhat ties into the last thing I was talking about, was fire alarm systems. So I did a ton of fire alarm testing. There were hundreds of these BYD enclosures being installed here, these battery enclosures full of high-powered lithium-ion batteries that were being installed in the middle of the desert among grassland and Joshua trees. So you want to be making sure that that environment is being protected, that local communities aren't going to be negatively impacted by whatever kind of thermal spillover that you have. So you want to make sure that your fire alarm systems are in order. And we did a number of modifications to comply with updating and shifting codes that ended up being the factory-produced fire alarm systems weren't quite compliant, so we ended up having to do several rounds of modifications, many of which had been done prior to when I got there, but some of which were being completed afterwards, and those all required tons and tons and tons of fire alarm tests. So I was out there in the summer, 10 hours a day sometimes, poking those fire alarms, making sure that they were working all in order, and I was doing a bunch of the execution, but in doing the execution, I got a real hands-on feel for the fire alarm system, and I had some great opportunities to actually indulge in project management and some more technical stuff. So I was doing a ton of document control, labor planning and coordination, reporting to the owners and to the involved superintendents and APMs on the fire alarm tracking and progress for the day, and I was really excited about this, and this was probably my best moment of the summer, was I participated in some process improvement, I should say I did it. I completely changed, based on my experience out there poking fire alarms all day, the sequence and the breakdown of how we actually perform the fire alarm testing, and I made it, I think it was something like 53% more efficient, massive time savings that made it so much easier to stay on schedule with regards to that, staying on the schedule of the local fire department when we would do witness testing with them, making sure that all of our internal testing was complete, ton of stuff. Here's some more details on that actually. This was a report sheet that I put together, put together myself, because none of this stuff existed before. VES is a completely new industry that doesn't have a lot of established procedure for stuff like this. So I was able to put together this reporting format. I was able to update and work on this layout here, which is basically a visual tracker of where our fire alarm system testing is. I was able to get almost all of those green boxes filled in before I left. I took it from about 0% to 99%, didn't quite make it before I had to go, but it was great to see that go from concept to reality as we completed that sequence of testing. You can actually see a broken fire alarm here. I don't think the hardware was usually the problem, but in this case it was. There were a couple of rows missing, and it would be pretty funny. But yeah, I had a lot of opportunities to get involved in this, to make executable improvements that I felt really gratifying to make, and I got a lot of involvement in that regard. Now, some of the things that I didn't like so much were the desert itself. It's hot, it's desolate, it's barren, there's nothing around, and when you're putting 60 desert miles a day on a car that hasn't seen action since the Clinton administration, dealing with a roommate with somewhat questionable parking habits, as you can see there. There's a lot of worry in a barren environment, but it was okay because I really enjoyed all the opportunities that Mortenson and the environment provided to me. I'd never been to Yosemite before. Thanks, Soren. Thanks, Drew, for taking that picture. I'd have so many opportunities for personal and professional development that I would never have had. And I just really loved the Mortenson culture. Every day that I was showing up, 12 hours in the desert, sure, but it was fun. I loved it every day. Hey, Justin. Hey, Martin. Just a great opportunity that I would absolutely do again. Thank you so much.